Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm very well. Hi, Nia. Nice to be here with you
Yes,
virtually.
I am waiting for this interview. A lot of people are waiting for this interview. You're leading the CBDC at Visa. I have so many questions to ask you. I know you have amazing announcement and stuff, and people from all over the world are watching this. But first, maybe you can tell the audience, the people who are watching us right now, about your role and what are you doing at Visa.
Definitely. So thank you so much for having me on this event. Very excited to share some of the latest news and thinkings that Visa has. But first of all, my name is Catherine Gu. I lead the global Visa CBDC efforts, and we're right now we're spending a lot of time talking with central banks around the world, understanding this hot topic as every single central bank pretty much is looking into this in one way or another. And also from our side as being the payment service provider, we're really trying to be innovative and trying to kind of think through the ways in which to form public and private partnerships, and envisioning the future together with all the other major stakeholders trying to pave that path forward. And that's really my job, which is pretty exciting, I guess, which is talking to a combination of both the central banks, the regulators, but also at the same time we constantly speak with fintechs and innovators out there so that we understand what we need to build for the next 5 to 10 years.
So, we are the Coin Nation Summit. We have here central banks, we have regulators, we have, people are watching from all over the world. First, before we dive into the Visa solution and your announcement, why is this topic so hot? What is exactly CBDC and what are we going to see in the future?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. And I think for many people, during our every day-to-day use, we don't really think much about money per se. As long as the money is spendable, it can be used as a medium of exchange, we're good with that. But the thing is, there's actually a lot of nuances behind that thing. So actually just taking one step back, what is exactly central bank digital currencies? So CBDC represents central bank money completely in a digital form. Now, if you think about what's the equivalent available of today, the only equivalent is really cash. Cash is the only way in which you have direct access to central bank money by any normal people like you and me. Of course, as the world is becoming more digitalized, people are trying to think about ways to make everything digital, and so are the central banks out there. Especially, it's interesting because different countries have very different scenarios. If you look at, say, in Sweden, there is a very clear decline of cash, and because of that reason, central banks are thinking through how can I still make central bank money relevant, since the central bank is the one running monetary policy and trying to help the economy on the right trajectory. So how can I maintain that relevance of cash when cash is declining? The answer is to have a digital version of cash, which is the CBDC. Now, on the other hand, if you look at more developing countries like the Caribbean, such as the Bahamas, or Eastern Caribbean Central Islands, which is a combination of 8 or 10, I think, small islands combined together. Well, there you actually, even as of today, the usage of cash is still so heavy. And as people are more and more using mobile phones from the rest of the world, and because cash is expensive to carry and to use, governments and central banks are thinking through different ways to make it digital. So there's many of reasons of why CBDC, but the important thing is CBDC represents the direct access of central bank money, which is the safest form of money. And this time is going to be completely digital, and this is where we get the CBDC. And if you look at the statistics as of today, I think the sort of really well-known survey that was done at the beginning of this year by the Bank for International Settlements said over 86% of all the central banks around the world are actively looking into CBDC. And by now, we already have a few live sort of CBDC pilots spreading across the Bahamas, the Eastern Caribbean. Sweden is doing something really exciting. Europe just announced something on digital euro. In the Asia Pacific, you have China, you have Singapore, you name it, the list is very long. So yeah.
So you are talking with central banks all over the world, and what is the Visa aspect of it? Because Visa so far, and I met so many of the Visa team, and each one of them is a leader. Tell me about the leadership of Visa in this space.
Definitely. I think, CBDC is a very complicated subject. There's no doubt about it. And that's why we're going to look at the next 3 to 5 years with people actively looking at it. And the people who are going to actively look at it is not only just the policymakers, because CBDC is a combination of, you need to think about it from a policy perspective. You need the technologists to kind of contribute the solutions to help the policymakers to achieve their objectives. But also you need fintechs, you need consumer business merchants, everyone to put their own inputs into this, because CBDC represents public money. It's going to be used by everyone and hopefully everywhere, right? So there's a lot of like different factors involved. And so Visa, we are sort of at this very interesting intersection of many different sort of like, in between the public and the private, in between the fintech and the traditional financial institutions. There's a lot of things we want to think through. What is the implication of CBDC that will come in 5 years' time, will feed to the whole ecosystem? And I think if I have to summarize it in sort of succinct sort of key principles of how Visa is thinking through central bank digital currency, I would highlight at least these 3 major principles. So firstly, I think commercial bank has to be ready when CBDC is launched. And you can't do it when CBDC gets announced. You have to start preparing today. You have to start thinking through what are the core infrastructure you need to build, what are the core products will look like that will anticipate what's to happen 5 years down the line. So there's a lot of education, I think, that we need to get going to educate our traditional banking partners. What does all these sort of new digital currency mean? All the things to do with digital wallet infrastructure, like the blockchain technology, DLT and custody, all these things are pretty complicated and takes time for us to educate ourselves and start building the capabilities so that when CBDC is created, because CBDC has to be distributing some sort of fashion, and we want the private sector to be as involved as possible. So I think it's crucial that the commercial banks play that important role in terms of being the intermediary, distributing those new money into people's hands, and therefore you need new product and new sort of rail and infrastructure to support it. So that's point number 1. I would say secondly, though, interesting, I think, when it comes to thinking through digital currency as well as CBDC, drawing the inspiration of how we have seen the success that is already happened in stable coins and such, I think it is quite important to think through how could you create a developer-friendly ecosystem? Because in the future, there's so many new things. We don't even know what it would look like. What does the new monetary flow will look like on top of CBDC? That has to happen organically. There will be some sort of, I guess, random geniuses who can just build it out of his or her own garage, right? So in that way, like, we have to have an ecosystem that is conducive for those sort of innovations. But then on the other hand, we have to make sure, especially because we're talking about a central bank digital currency system, we have to ensure the best standards have been sort of already put in place so that, it's only the vetted, the approved people that has went through the screening, went through the compliance checks. But once they have done so, they should have an ecosystem in which they can freely to build creative, innovative new products on top of a platform, which is the central bank digital currency platform that will be the sort of the new version of stablecoin, I think, hopefully to coexist alongside by side. So that's point number 2. And I think the last point, coming back to, what we always emphasize on, is what we call merchant acceptance. And that's really just to say that whether it's old form of money or new form of money, that is, CBDC represents this new form of money, they have to be accepted, they have to be usable. It's just as simple as, how can your local store accept your money that you present, and they have to have the right infrastructure. So we want to, from Visa's perspective, we want to make these sort of transition as seamless as possible. The best scenario will be everything happens at the back end and you don't even notice the difference when you're spending a new form factor of money, but that requires a lot of work to actually make that happen.
So it means for the private customer, for the business, for everybody, as you say. And I understand that you're gonna build like some sort of a hub. Are you gonna, what does it look like? How is it called? Like, lead me through the protocols a little bit so people will understand the coding, the development work that is behind this.
Yeah, for sure. So, we have been doing a lot of cutting edge research, and so the latest announcement that we have made is actually is still applied research right now. But what we're envisioning in the future is that in the future, we're going to live in a universe which is having different type of digital currencies being used, and these digital currencies or CBDCs or any other form factors of money, very likely they're going to exist on different versions of, say, whether that's DLT technology or non-DLT technology. So the immediate challenge for us to think about what's going to look like in 10 years time is that, when you have a multi-currency, multi-token running on multiple different blockchains or non-blockchain sort of payment rails, how do you make these sort of money to flow from one rail to another rail? And this is where the core of the interoperability sits. And I have to, emphasize, it's not only Visa which is doing these innovative things. We are looking at sort of international organizations such as the Bank for International Settlement, a lot of leading central banks such as, Monetary Authority of Singapore, Bank of Canada. They've all done sort of experimentation already because everyone has seen that future, which is pretty complicated. So with different tokens going to flow on different blockchains, let's say. That's the first step that we're tackling, just trying to make different DLT technology interoperable as well as scalable, right? So this is what we published as of today, in which, we're introducing this research technology, which is called Universal Payment Channel. And just to provide a little bit technology background in what is that? So Universal Payment Channel is really using a class of technique known as payment channel that I think the crypto community knows very well. Most of the times, these payment channels is really used for scalability reason because payment channels can be created off the blockchain. So essentially, you let transaction to happen off the blockchain such that every single time the transaction getting exchanged, you don't actually touch the blockchain, which takes time because of the consensus mechanism. Instead, you put it off the ledger to do it. Now, of course, you need a cryptographic primitive involved to make it secure, and people have to commit to the transaction, not later on to revoke it and such. So there we use the technology, which is again well known, which is called hash time lock contract, to kind of securely ensure transactions can be performed in that fashion. Now, the thing is, our goal is rather than focus purely as a scalability solution, which is a lot of the layer 2 solutions out there, we're actually more focused on this interoperability issue. It's because the motivation is we know that CBDC will be very likely to happen across many countries. CBDC might be running, say, one CBDC is running on Quarter network, another one is running on Quorum network. How do you really interconnect these sort of CBDCs so that you can facilitate, say, cross-border payments, right? Like if I'm sending you money, I can send you in my local currency, and just imagine like 1 second later, you got your confirmation, but actually on your digital wallet, you do receive it in your local CBDC currency or your local stablecoin currency. So these things can happen, but definitely there needs to be backend technology, which is this interoperability technology to make it happen. So this is the sort of exciting research that we're introducing and sharing with the community today. It's still very early, I would say, and we're really, keen to get the feedbacks and community sort of responses to how they think the future will shape like, because I mean, this is very much a research and we would love to get the community feedback. So.
Wow. I have to tell you, I would love to give credit to all the team, the people behind this, who I guess worked a lot until reaching today with the first paper research that you're putting out there. And actually, we're going to put the link right here when you speak to read, to be engaged. We also have a Visa booth and Visa representative because a lot of people probably want to, be engaged and learn more and be involved. And I understand that you also published like a smart contract protocol online somewhere, right?
Yeah, so it's part of the blog post, and I think the folks can find it through that blog post on interoperability for Universal Payment Channel. It's a sample work of what we're doing. Yeah. It's clearly still early stage, but we're learning like everyone else about Solidity, smart contract, and what it all means to interact with the blockchain. So it's super exciting. But by the way, Nia, I do want to emphasize, interoperability is definitely a core focus of our research area right now for CBDC. But there's many other exciting areas of research that we're already under the way. The other one I do want to actually just flag out in the remaining time is actually on our work on offline payment system. So that's actually, again, it's another research that we published in December in 2020, in which I mentioned about CBDC being this digital version of cash. So how do you actually create that cash-like experience? Cash by definition is offline. I give you the money, you take the money, and the transaction is final. So we can do that in a digital way as well. And you can actually do it by quote unquote downloading the digital money onto your mobile phone and having mobile phone to transfer money from one person to another, just like the mobile phone is your actual wallet to do it. Of course, there's a lot of challenges in terms of how do you prevent double spending, how do you also introduce sort of mechanism in case you lose your phone or your phone got water damage. You don't want all your money to be lost forever. So is there a recovery mechanism for that to support it? Well, we're actually looking into these sort of issues as we speak, and these are super cool technologies. I think when CBDC come along, we really hope that in the 5 to 10 years time, these technologies will become part of the reality to really make that world much more exciting, with online payment, with offline payments, interoperability, privacy, all these things we'll have to work on.
And real time and fast and secure and all the things that we are used to expect from Visa. And
exactly. Consumers have definitely a very high expectation. We don't want to let them down, of course. And I think that's key, right? Like, people don't want to be too disrupted, and they welcome innovation, but they want to welcome it so that it's still very intuitive and makes sense. And I think that's the hard challenge for all the technologies out there, which is trying to really having a focus on the user experience, starting from there and kind of working backwards. What does the backend technology can do to improve your current experience even better and securely? So those are all the things that we are tasked to do at Visa as well.
Amazing hub, and super important to take us to this future. And the minute I understood and I saw the leadership by Visa and you, I knew that this is geared to the Coin Nation Summit, because this is the main topic here. So that's why I think this keynote is super important. We have lots of people who want to be engaged, ask questions. We encourage you to do so. We will put all the information from the Visa website, the Visa materials on the booth, and also here. And people can follow and connect with you and your wonderful team that I understand that they should get a lot of credit, and I'm happy to say that here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're super excited to share our continued research, and also, looking for partnerships out there. There's a lot of cool co-creations we can do, a lot of brainstormings, and definitely welcome the community feedback.
Great. Let's use this matchmaking. We are building this marketplace for all players to connect from all around the world, and the countries you mentioned and other countries that are working on CBDCs. And I will personally love to connect with them with you as the leader of this at Visa. So thank you very much, Catherine, and enjoy the summit, connect with people, set meetings, and amazing work.
Thank you, Nia.
Thank you.